Hello, I'm Guy, and this is Guy Robot. Hello, and welcome to another episode of my blockchain Bonanza. Today, I'm going to be looking at what the future of smart contracts are. This is part of my video a day for a month covering all kinds of different areas of cryptocurrency and blockchains. If you're interested, I've been working on my own blockchain cryptocurrency startup. It's an investment fund using AI to trade cryptocurrencies. You can check out more about that and all of our source code over at smartift.com, link in the description below. But we've talked about smart contracts for the last few days, and what is the future of them and what could people do with them? The possibilities we kind of covered in the last one, the different types of applications, but wider than that, we're really just using Ethereum and some rubbish programming languages at the moment. So where does this go? Well, I think the first one is there'll be lots of different blockchains, all with their own virtual machines. And they'll work in different ways. We need to deal with issues of the relatively large costs for deployment and poor performance. And we need to come up with a better way for doing this. So we'll see different competing blockchains all approaching this in different ways. And we've already seen with SegWit in Bitcoin, the proposal mentioned quite calmly about how there are future ways that we could potentially do other things in here and different operations that could kind of lead the foundation to smart contracts in Bitcoin, which is interesting but will really feel bodgy. And I think we'll end up at the point that we have some blockchains just for doing smart contract work and some for actually having financial value. Interestingly, Ethereum is really separating that and taking their Ether currency itself, and they're aiming to put that as a contract on top of the network itself, which is pretty cool. Along with this, we need better tool sets. If you want to do a test and deploy cycle at the moment, it's painful. So we had 5 contracts, and I wrote some scripts that would do a build for it and chuck out the binary for it. Then what you need to do is create your own testnet. You need to set that testnet to the state you want, where you've got accounts with balances for doing different things, and you've got all your accounts and contracts for it. Then you need to deploy your contracts to that testnet, mine some blocks to get those confirmed. Then if you've got interacting contracts where you need to set related addresses for it, pass all that data in, and you're looking at 20, 30 blocks and a lot of manual work or scripting to get there. So those tool sets are going to come on a long way to make it better. There's already talk about it. I put a link on my Twitter the other day to a potential smart contract operating system. It's not an operating system, but it's a set of really useful tool sets for developing stuff. And patterns like being able to upgrade your contracts on the blockchain that relay between future versions of it. It's not difficult to do, but there's no standard process for it at the moment. So I think we'll see standardizations and tool sets coming along that, and we'll get a lot of this both within Ethereum and competing with Ethereum. Personally, I think there needs to be the ability to call outside of the blockchain. Pushing data into the blockchain is a fundamental risk because someone could push data in that's not true. So I looked at the insurance example with taking weather readings. Well, if that weather reading is fake by the insurer and they say it's not flooded when it is, you won't get your payout. You're in the same situation as you would be in a normal contract, apart from it's on the public record that they've lied about it. But if you, on the other hand, can make a smart contract go out to sources and pull stuff in, then at that point you've got a much more interesting opportunity. There's a whole bunch of security issues, there's a whole bunch of costings to do with bandwidth added to it and whether it becomes viable. But I can see that there are certain blockchains and smart contracts that will very much work for going out and pulling data in as well. You've still got the possibility that something external is hacked or compromised. However, at least you know that it's you pulling that in and there's other checks and balances you can do. There's no reason you can't combine multiple sources, for example. Once all this is done, I think we've then finally got contracts that can actually be enforced and have some legal basis. Any organisation in the future that's going to want transparency is probably going to be looking more and more at blockchain transparency and having all of your data and your source code for anyone to see and be able to access and potentially interact with, and knowing what they're interacting with and what you're doing is a massive bonus for organisations that want transparency. It also potentially takes us away from pointless mining. I really disagree with proof of work and the amount of energy and electricity that gets wasted on an absolutely pointless algorithm. Now, if we're all running smart contracts on our blockchains and we're getting paid in a virtual currency with real world value because our computer powers are actually running business code for them, this is amazing. What that does is take away data centers, it takes away the need for big providers like Microsoft and Amazon that can centralize all control of business applications. I mean, Christ, look at Amazon with their cloud services. Netflix rely on them completely for their business model, yet Amazon compete with them with Prime at the same time. It's just absolutely nuts, but that's how the computing world works at the moment. The idea that everyone becomes everyone else's data center creates this whole world of democratized computing where your own computing facilities at home actually make a difference. Now, what if we dealt with radiators for heating in your homes at that point by putting computers inside them that run business logic for large organizations? But also heat your house at the same time and use the heating in a useful way. There's so many possibilities when we get into that point that everyone's using it, that it becomes much more interesting. CPU cycles being used for good is a wonderful thing. At the moment, crypto wastes CPU cycles, and we will frown on it in the future, I'm sure, as being the most wasteful use of electricity in human history. But smart contracts are something amazing to come out of it that really turn around how that energy model works. And if you look at a miner that's constantly fulfilling smart contract validation, they are using 100% of their computer time, which actually then ends up even better than the data center power utilizations you get in places like Amazon and Azure and Google's data centers. We've talked about some of the models next time. I think insurance, legal contracts, shared databases, proof of anything having happened in the past, these will all be important things. And I think we will see more and more of an uptake, but I don't think we're going to see that until the start of the next decade. We've got a few years of tooling to do first, and there's a lot of money to be made here for people who jump in at the right point. It's a really exciting time, I think, for technology. I think a lot of computing technology and development has kind of plateaued over the last 15, 20 years, but then suddenly we've got some really interesting new areas, and smart contracts are one of the most exciting things for me. Hopefully you found this interesting. The future of smart contracts is super interesting, and I'd love to know any ideas you've got. What kind of smart contracts would you be interested in doing? What do you think could be viable and really interesting in the future? And what would you like to see now? What are the biggest problems with it? Leave your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, thumbs up as well. And if you've got a few minutes, I'd love it if you could check out smartift.com for the blockchain startup that I'm working on at the moment. Details for that are in the link below. And I will see you next time for another video of my blockchain bonanza. Thanks.